Hi, it's Barry Moore back with another Tactical 20 podcast.
Welcome to the Active Marketer Podcast, where we talk about how to design, automate, and scale your business to the next level using sales and marketing automation. You can find out all the tips, tactics, and techniques you need to get more customers and sell more stuff over at theactivemarketer.com. Now, here's your host, Barry Moore.
Hi, I'm your host, Barry Moore, and this is going to be another Tactical 20 podcast. The Tactical 20 podcasts are all about giving you an actionable tip, technique, or tactic that you can take away and implement in your business in less than 20 minutes. Hello, and welcome back to another Tactical 20 podcast. This week, we're going to be talking about integrations. Been getting a lot of questions, email, online, and on the Facebook group about how to integrate ActiveCampaign with other products. So I thought I'd take a Tactical 20 podcast to cover off a couple of those. There's basically 4 different ways, 2 of which are a bit more technical and will take more than 20 minutes. So in the spirit of the Tactical 20, a quick tip you can take away. We'll talk about 2 of those methods of integration, and we'll cover the other 2 methods later in later podcasts. So in this podcast, we're going to talk about 2 quick ways you can integrate your ActiveCampaign setup with other systems. And that is through direct connection via an API, which we'll talk about in a moment, or through a third-party integration site like Zapier. So let's start with what an API connection is. So an API connection is basically a direct connection between 2 systems that will allow you to pass information back and forth between 2 systems. In order to get this set up, you'll need your API key from ActiveCampaign, and you find that under the Accounts setting area in the upper right. Just go to your settings and you'll find API. There'll be 2 strings there. There'll be an API URL, which basically identifies your installation of ActiveCampaign, and then there'll be an API key, which is a long string of characters, which is basically is a basic way to authenticate the other system. So you give the other system both of those 2 pieces of information, and that other system will be able to talk directly to ActiveCampaign. So some of the big products out there that have direct API connections to ActiveCampaign, things like LeadPages, you can set up direct API connections from LeadPages to ActiveCampaign, or ClickFunnels, Instapage, MoonClerk for payments. So there are a number of different systems out there that will use that API connection to basically connect via a one-to-one connection between your implementation of LeadPages, your LeadPages account, and your ActiveCampaign account. And LeadPages will push that information to ActiveCampaign via the ActiveCampaign API, which is application programming interface, basically just a bunch of instructions like create a new user, or update the notes value on a user, or create a new deal. Those are kind of commands that you can invoke via the API. And again, to do that, you just get your API keys from ActiveCampaign, the 2 API values that you find under your account settings, and then you go to whatever the other respective system is, if it has API integration, and you copy and paste those values across, and those 2 systems should be able to talk to each other. Now, this doesn't work for all systems. Basically, that other system, like LeadPages or ClickFunnels, will need to put into the work behind the scenes to use the ActiveCampaign API to talk back and forth, and that usually requires some programming on their part. So some companies will do it and some companies will not. So check to see if there's API integration with ActiveCampaign first. And we'll circle back to that API integration in just a minute. The other way to set up integration between 2 systems is through a third party like Zapier or If This Then That. If you're not familiar with those types of systems, basically they act as a switchboard between the 2 different systems. So basically they sit in the middle and they listen, and you can connect them kind of like a switchboard to trigger events in both systems. So for example, a common example is you might have a help desk system like HelpScout, for example. And whenever you receive a help desk ticket from somebody, you might want to update their record in ActiveCampaign. Now, those 2 systems don't have API integration, so they can't talk directly to each other, but they can talk to each other via a third party like Zapier. So basically what happens is Zapier sits in the middle and it listens for events on both sides. So you've got ActiveCampaign on one side and HelpScout on the other side. Whenever a new ticket is created in HelpScout, that triggers an event or that triggers some communication to Zapier, and Zapier goes, hey, there's a new help desk ticket in HelpScout with this particular email address. I've got a instruction here, or what Zapier calls a zap. I've got a zap here. Whenever I get a new help desk ticket in HelpScout, I want to see if I have a matching email address in ActiveCampaign. If I do, I want to update that customer's contact record in ActiveCampaign. If I don't, maybe I'm going to create a new customer record in ActiveCampaign using the email address and information inside that help desk ticket, that HelpScout ticket. So basically, Zapier sits in the middle and passes information between the two systems. And you connect those two systems by creating a zap. The Zapier is a third-party system. You can use Zapier without using ActiveCampaign or anything like that. You can go and create a Zapier account. Typically, you have to pay for those things, and you can set up zaps between a vast number of different systems. But the great thing about ActiveCampaign is it comes with Zapier support built in already, so you don't have to go and create a new Zapier account. It comes as part of your ActiveCampaign installation. And the way you get to that is you go to ActiveCampaign, you click on the Apps menu, and that will take you to a screen there, and in the upper left-hand corner, you'll see a little panel that says Your Favorite Apps. And you can view all the apps there, and those are all the different kind of applications that you can set up zaps to. And again, zaps is just a zap is a discrete set of instructions. It says, pass this particular amount of information from system A to system B. So for example, if someone buys a product in PayPal, you can zap their name and email address over to ActiveCampaign. Or if somebody, again, fills in a help desk ticket, you can zap that information across. Or they check out with a product in WooCommerce or Shopify, for example, you can zap that information into ActiveCampaign simply by creating that zap or that set of connection instructions between the two systems and telling it what event trigger on each side of the communication you want to set off the zap. So, for example, a new help desk ticket is the event trigger to set off a zap, and then what information you want to push to the other side of the transaction. So, new help desk ticket, I want to create a zap that fires anytime there's a new help desk ticket in HelpScout and pushes that email address across into ActiveCampaign or updates an existing record inside ActiveCampaign. So that's how you do it. You go to Apps, find the app that you want, and then just follow the instructions to set up your zap and make sure, of course, that you test it. I'll have some example zaps in the show notes, and so you can have a look at what one looks like. All right, so now let's circle back to the API stuff we talked about before. So let's say you're setting up an API connection between a lead capture system like LeadPages or ClickFunnels or Thrive Leads or Optin Monster or any of those major kind of opt-in tools will have API integration to ActiveCampaign. Now the rub is they all treat that integration slightly differently. So if you've read my post on submits form versus joins list, or you've listened to the other podcast about action lists, the API integrations can be slightly problematic in that some API integrations will only allow you to specify what list you want someone to join in ActiveCampaign, which makes it difficult to tag them and fire an automation as they opt in. So ClickFunnels is an example of that. It only allows you to specify what list people are going to join. So if you want to fire off an automation as they join your list, which you almost certainly will, because you're going to want to tag them and take certain steps based on the opt-in. So say they download lead magnet ABC, you want to tag them with ABC, send them the lead magnet, and then we follow them up with some more topics based around what that lead magnet subject was. You're going to need automation for that. You're going to need tags for that. And joining a list won't let you do that. So in that particular kind of instance, you're going to need an action list. And in the show notes, I'll link to what an action list can do for you. The other types of integrations with APIs will allow you to specify, instead of specifying which list you want to pass the information to, they will allow you to specify which form you want to pass the information to. So LeadPages is a perfect example of this. If you do the API integration with LeadPages and you create a lead page, it will ask you, okay, what integration do you want to use to pass this information? And you would say ActiveCampaign, and then it will say, it'll bring back a list of forms inside ActiveCampaign. You'll be able to pick which opt-in form you want to pass the information to. So you can have automations that fire based on the submits form trigger, which can have all those different automation steps we just talked about. So it's a better, tidier way to do it. The other option is, for example, Thrive Leads. They have API integration, but again, that API integration only allows you to specify a list to join, which can be problematic. So now you've got to create a new action list and join the people by an action list. So your ActiveCampaign implementation starts to get a little bit messy in the back end because you've got a number of lists there that are just solely there as a workaround to the limitations of the API integration. The way you can get around that with some systems is just instead of using the API integration, you just copy and paste your form code from ActiveCampaign into Thrive Leads. And so you use a HTML copy and paste form of integration rather than the API integration, and that will allow you, again, to utilize an ActiveCampaign form to fire your automation triggers rather than having to create an action list for no particular reason. And then there's kind of people that live halfway in between. Optin Monster, for example, is a good example. They will allow you to specify a list to join rather than a form, which can be problematic, as we said. But the way to get around that, and the way Optin Monster implements the API to get around that, is it allows you to specify what list you want that contact to join, but also what tags you want to pass as they join the list. So not only do they join the list, but they join the list with some tags attached. So now that you can have your automation fire based on tags rather than a form submit, so that it's more useful than just specifying a list, because then those tags can act as trigger to fire off whatever automation you need to fire off. So in our example, that lead magnet automation, you can now use those tags that are being passed as part of your Optin Monster opt-in, and those can fire out the automation as opposed to the trigger of submits form. And remember, automations can have multiple triggers as well. So the automation might fire based off of submits form action or has tag ABC action as well. Both of those actions could fire off the implementation. So you could, in theory, you could have a LeadPages form that fires based on a lead page join. Then you could have the opt-in box on your Optin Monster opt-in box on your website, which passes a tag to fire the automation as well, so that you can actually fire that automation to deliver your lead magnet using either of those two different opt-in methods. So that's a little discussion around how you can integrate your ActiveCampaign with other systems using either the API connections in ActiveCampaign or using your free built-in Zapier support inside ActiveCampaign as well. The other two ways you can pass information between two systems are using webhooks, which allow you to pass a string of information via HTTP or via a URL string, and then the other way is event tracking, which you need to custom code into whatever system you want to pass information between. So we'll cover those other two in later topics, but I want to keep this to something you can implement in 20 minutes. So have a think about how you're going to integrate those other systems, LeadPages, ClickFunnels, Thrive Leads, Optin Monster, via an API, whether you need to create an action list, whether you need to copy and paste the HTML form, or whether you can actually pass tags along as part of your opt-in. And then if you're going to create a Zapier integration, you want to think about what trigger in System B is going to trigger Zapier to listen and pass information back to System A, and what information is going to be passed along as part of that discrete set of instructions, which is known as a Zap. And once again, you can find everything over on the show notes at theactivemarketer.com. So see you a little bit later on for another Tactical 20 podcast. But next week, we've got a fantastic interview coming up with Taki Moore from Coach Marketing Machines. Really, really great masterclass in how to set up your automations for webinars. So look forward to that one. It's a really good interview, and we'll see you next week. All right, that's our Tactical 20 podcast for this week. If you have any questions or any topics you'd like to see covered on future Tactical 20 podcasts, you can always send me an email at Barry, B-A-R-R-Y, at theactivemarketer.com and let us know what you'd like to see. Also, if you head over to the show notes for this episode and just leave a comment in any of the episode show notes, tell us what you'd like to see and we'll make sure we cover it on an upcoming episode. So get out there and design, automate, and scale your business to the next level using sales and marketing automation. See you next week, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Active Marketer Podcast. You can find the show notes and all the latest marketing automation news over at theactivemarketer.com.